everyone. Welcome to a special Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month YWednesday. I'm Allison Marker. I'm the Resource Development Director at YWCA Northeast Kansas, and I use she, her pronouns. And joining me today is Emily Steimel-Handy.
Hello.
Emily is our Public Education Coordinator for our Center for Safety and Empowerment. Like I mentioned, we're going to be talking about Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month and about healthy relationships. Emily is available for public presentations and trainings for your groups, for schools, and wide variety of professional groups as well, so that you can learn more about this issue and so much more. So let's just dive right in.
Yes.
We talk a lot about domestic violence and sexual violence, human trafficking, which we all know exists on a spectrum, but on the other end of that spectrum is healthy relationships. So Emily, I know you do a lot of presentations about healthy relationships. Do you want to define what is a healthy relationship?
Sure. So I think that this is the perfect time to be talking about healthy relationships. One, yes, we should be talking about this all year long because it's so important, especially when we're talking about our teens and our younger ones. But, this is already the month that we're celebrating love and romance and relationships. So what a perfect tie-in to talking about what that looks like and the green flags. And so when I think about a healthy relationship and when I talk about healthy relationships, we really want to look at relationships that are built on a foundation of trust and honesty and respect for one another and independence, because sometimes I think we think, oh, we're in a relationship, so we have to do everything together and we have to like all the same things. And that is not the case, right? You should be able to keep your independency within that relationship and keep your own identity and have that identity respected and celebrated within that relationship. Sexual respect, so making sure that there's consent for all sexual activities and really all activities across the spectrum. We want to make sure that there's respect and choice within those decisions. We want to make sure that there's non-violence, so not just physical violence, but also making sure that there's emotional safety, that there's financial safety within that relationship, and that there's equality and that both partners are viewed as equal partners within the relationship, and there's fairness and there's friendship. I always talk to teens about, never stop dating your partner, never stop, just having fun together and laughing together and being friends, and not just building your whole relationship over the intimate side of things, but also over the friendship side and that safety within that relationship and within that friendship. So that's kind of how I look at it when we're talking about healthy relationships. I'm definitely not an expert, right? But I think that gives us some tangible, just simple things that we can think of when we're trying to define what a healthy relationship can look like.
I love what you said about friendship, because I think I also tie it back to when things will get tough, when there are tough times in a relationship, having those very foundational pieces to be able to fall back on are so important, right? Because if you can't feel safe showing up however you're feeling one day versus the next, that's going to spell trouble eventually, right?
Yeah, because unfortunately relationships are complicated, right? And they're not easy, and we are all very flawed humans, and we are going to bring that flawness into relationships. And like you said, I love how you talked about showing up just as you are and that being okay.
Right. And so what are some other green flags versus red flags that you should look for in a healthy relationship? I'm seeing empathy.
Yeah, right. I always think of empathy as, putting yourself in the other person's shoes, but also being able to see things from your partner's perspective. And I like to talk about empathy within when you do have those disagreements or when you do have those fights. I talk about empathy and fighting fair, because if you have empathy and compassion for your partner in the good times, but also in the bad times, then when those complications do rise up when there are arguments, when there are disagreements, because those are going to happen. Nobody's perfect and no relationship is perfect. You can still have empathy for your partner, even if you disagree. And so you can try to see things from their point of view and try and respecting that point of view and respecting that disagreement that you are having. So not only empathy in the good, but also empathy in the more difficult times as well.
I think that is such an important point when you're talking about conflict. Like, it is going to arise, but there is a huge difference between having healthy conflict and holding space for somebody else's maybe difference of opinion from yours, rather than what we can sometimes see in an unhealthy relationship that would look like somewhat like either gaslighting or full out just denying or not hearing, or ultimatums that can look really extreme. So really good points. So I want to shift gears a little bit after we've talked about these green flags. When we're in the space of talking about healthy relationships versus unhealthy relationships, a term that we've seen come up a lot recently on social media and see play out on different Hulu and Netflix and streaming shows is this term of love bombing. Can you explain what that is?
Yes, it's such an important topic, right? And it's something fairly new. I think that the word is fairly new around love bombing. So I always think of it as like picturing a situation or a relationship where everything seems perfect within that relationship. Things are good. There's a lot of attention. There's gifts. You really think that you found somebody who is going to give you the attention and the validation and the love that you are looking for. And you might get that gut feeling that things are almost too perfect, like it's too good to be true. And you're feeling special, you're feeling needed, you're feeling valued, all of these things. And then later on, that relationship shifts into something that maybe you don't recognize. Because as you mentioned, relationships are all on a spectrum. So you start off in that green side, and now things are starting to kind of shift into yellow and orange and maybe even the red. And love bombing is really a form of emotional abuse that is characterized by excessive attention, excessive admiration, and affection. And it's a tactic that abusers and perpetrators of violence will use to build dependency or feel like their partner owes them or they're obligated to them and to the relationship. And it's a way that they can start that emotional manipulation, because if I'm showering you with gifts and I'm showering you with love, then later on, when things start to go awry, when you start to feel like there is an imbalance in the relationship, the other person might use those gifts and that love and that affection over you in the sense of, you owe me because I took care of you. And so it can look like a lot of gifts or over the top compliments all of the time, kind of being put on this pedestal where you feel like you're never going to meet that expectation. It can be constant texts and calls and messages. Just, it might not be like, where are you? What are you doing? But it could just be like dropping in like, hey, I love you so much, blah, 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 like over and over and over again.
I think that's a real classic one, right? That's one that shows up a lot.
Yes, or like thinking of social media, like all of the time they're posting about how awesome their partner is. And this is my like, quote unquote, right, like woman crush Wednesday or man crush Monday or whatever it is, like all of the time, every day of the week. Or it might be that the relationship is moving really, really fast. Like they want commitment right now, right off the bat. Like I want you to I want to tell you that I love you and I want you to say it back to me. So just moving really fast. And then the relationship or the partner constantly needing reassurance. And so it's literally just a bombing of love and of affection to build dependency and to build obligation within that relationship.
So if it feels kind of like your life's being turned upside down because of this whirlwind love, that might be a time to like take a pause, take a step back and say, is this love bombing, right?
Yeah, and I know that you and I had a conversation about like how many times this is played out in like every Hallmark movie.
Yes, every
like,
rom-com.
Every rom-com, so many shows, like, you know, the whole article about the Tinder swindler and how it's all about love bombing. And your girl is, you know, a huge Bachelorette fan, wearing my tea today, like all about love bombing, like extravagant dates. I want this relationship to move quickly. I expect you to get engaged to me in 2 weeks, even though you barely know me. That is all love bombing. And so I think when we, especially our teens and our young adults, take in all of these shows and it's so normalized, then it starts to become normalized in their own lives where they feel like this is just how relationships are. And
not just normalized, but maybe expected then, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so just another one of like the ways that pop culture and all of these things play into the normalization overall of unhealthy and abusive relationships, really, and having those conversations around like, yes, this is things that we can enjoy on the TV, yes, but also we need to have a real conversation about how this is not realistic and this isn't healthy.
I think that's so important and something that we could all do better at calling out or naming, you know, as we see these things play out. You don't have to be the party pooper, but maybe to be able to take a rom-com at face value or take that reality TV show for what it is and it's not reality. And if it is reality, it's certainly not a healthy reality, right? We can maybe find entertainment in it, but it's not something that we should use as a model for the way we live our own lives.
Yes.
So I want to maybe like switch from love bombing to talk about sort of another piece of the healthy relationship puzzle. Another term that comes up a lot is jealousy. So when we're feeling jealous of a partner, how do we know that that is a healthy versus unhealthy feeling?
That is a great conversation to have, especially once again when we're thinking about teens, because when I've worked with teens or done groups with teens, you know, there's also this normalization that jealousy and love go hand in hand, that there has to be both within a relationship, because if my partner is not jealous of me, or if I'm not jealous of my partner, then it means that we don't love each other. It means that we don't care about each other. And that's just not the case. But like you said, jealousy is a normal, valid feeling to have. Insecurity is a normal, valid feeling to have. We are all going to feel jealous and insecure within our relationships at some point in time. But I think it is all about focusing on the root of that jealousy or of that insecurity and the motive behind the jealousy and the insecurity and how that plays out in my relationship. Am I using jealousy and insecurity to control? Am I using jealousy and insecurity to have power? Am I using it to isolate my partner? Am I using it to disrespect my partner? That is where there is a shift from quote unquote normal feelings and normal and valid behaviors that can very almost like inconspicuously fall into or lead into unhealthy and abusive tactics within a relationship. So if I'm using my jealousy and my insecurity to control or manipulate, then that is when we really need to have a conversation. Or if my partner is intentionally doing things to make me feel insecure and to make me feel jealous, then that's when we need to have a conversation about this is not healthy behavior.
Right. If you're in a partnership where your partner is making your self-esteem lower, then that's probably a sign, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious on this topic of jealousy and sort of control, like what would you say to someone who is either experiencing or is themselves maybe like checking their partner's phone, like their messages or their social media?
Yeah, so we get that question a lot. Like, where is the boundary between okay in doing this behavior and not okay in doing this behavior? And once again, I always look back at the motive, because remember, one of our core green flags of a relationship is trust and honesty. And so if you are feeling like you have to go through your partner's phone, or your partner feels like they have to go through your phone, then obviously there isn't trust, and maybe there isn't honesty. And so we're already breaking some core foundations of a healthy relationship. And so I would always encourage, if somebody feels safe and comfortable doing so, have a conversation with your partner before we start to go through someone's phone, or if they're going through your phone. Let's try to have a conversation if I feel safe and able to do so. Because once again, in a healthy relationship, there should also be safe and healthy communication. So when I'm feeling jealous, when I'm feeling insecure, when I'm feeling whatever emotions might be bubbling up, if I'm in a healthy and safe relationship, then I can have that conversation with my partner, and I don't have to worry about that conversation turning unsafe. But understanding violence and understanding unhealthy and abusive relationships, you might not be able to have that conversation, or you feel like you can't have that conversation with your partner in a safe way. And so that's when I would always encourage someone, if you are worried, or if there are just some gut feelings that are telling you something's not right, you can always call a Center for Safety and Empowerment advocate, and you can talk through the feelings that you're having. And we can help you come up with some options. We can help you come up with some safety planning about how you can have that conversation if that's something that you are anxious about or feeling worried about. And so I would always try to have somebody have a conversation. But if you're not feeling able to have that conversation, then call an advocate, talk to somebody that you trust within your support circle, and let's talk about options and resources and a plan so that you can hopefully have a safe conversation around that.
I love that, Emily. I'm always just so proud of all of our advocates, and so proud that we have a 24/7 hotline that's available to anyone who may be questioning things or may be in an unsafe situation, or for people who are trying to support others who may be in an unsafe situation. They're always welcome to call. To wrap things up, while we've been talking a lot about teens in healthy relationships, what services can teens access in our Center for Safety and Empowerment?
Yeah, so I think that there's, a very valid misconception that our services are only for adults, or they're only for people that are of a certain age. And that is just not the case. Our services are available for anybody, regardless of age. So if you're single, if you're dating, if you're thinking about dating, or you're in it's complicated relationship, we are here for you, because we believe that everyone deserves a safe and healthy relationship. So specifically for teens, we have our 24/7 hotline, as we had mentioned before, so you can call that anytime. I know, like, I'm a millennial, so cold calling can feel really uncomfortable a lot of times. And so if that's not something that you are comfortable doing, then you can always talk about walking into our services and seeing if we can help you that way. Or maybe you have someone that you trust and have a safe relationship with, and they can call for you, and we can navigate that. But we have counseling services. So you can see a counselor up to 2 times. If you are under the age of 16, I believe, or 16 and below, you can see a counselor for up to 2 times without guardian consent. So after those 2 sessions, then we would have to have guardian consent to continue that counseling. And if not, then we might look at some other resources for counseling and therapy options within our community. And then we also have case management. We have a lot of wonderful services here, regardless of age. So if you are curious about services or you are concerned about a friend or a loved one, give us a call, come into our office, and we would be happy to talk through some options and some resources that are available to you specifically as a young adult or as a teen or adolescent.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for all this invaluable information about healthy relationships, about green flags, and about our crucial, critical services in our Center for Safety and Empowerment. It's an honor to work with you every day. Thank you all for joining us, and stay tuned for more Y Wednesdays.
Yes, happy Love Month to everyone.